Welcome to the Independent Artist Podcast, sponsored by the National Association of Independent Artists.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. I'm Will Armstrong, and I'm a mixed media artist.
I'm Douglas Sigworth, glassblower. Join our conversations with professional working artists. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am back from Miami, and I don't know where the hell I am, actually. Will, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm right here in my daughter's bedroom. My ex has been on the road with her artwork, selling down in Florida. She's been gone for a month. So my daughter's studio/room definitely looks like she's been here for a month.
All right. Well, it's not a video podcast, so that's totally fine.
Nor is it smell-o-vision. Thank the Lord. I need a shower.
Well, you just got back from walking those dogs.
Yeah.
They won't be skipping around needing your attention for a little while here, so that's good news.
You know, it was coldest day of the year, honestly, out there. The winds are like 30 miles an hour, and it's 15 out there. So it's like Minnesota, Wisconsin weather out there. So
oh, no, don't even get me started. So listen, okay, I was in Miami yesterday morning. We drove up to Tampa. We flew home. We landed about 9 o'clock. But winter weather storm advisory, vehicles in the ditch everywhere. We couldn't even come home. So we had one more night in a hotel in Minneapolis. So,
oh, man.
Yeah, 30 miles from our house.
Do you stay at the airport?
Yep, we stayed at the airport. So we got a hotel and we got an Uber at like 5 in the morning to try and beat rush hour because we had to get home for some stuff today.
Good Lord.
And that was taking our lives into our own hands, I'll tell you.
Why, the road's still a little treacherous?
They were terrible. And the driver, I think he was kind of pissed that he accepted a job that took him way away from the airport. I mean, he had to go 30, 40 miles. So he was still going freeway speeds and we're fishtailing, and both Renee and I were thinking we were going to end up stuck in the ditch somewhere.
Yeah.
And then what do?
I don't know, man. That's tough. You had stuff to get home. Do you guys ever stay down in Florida in between shows? Like, what's your next show? How long's the break?
It's only a week. We're back for Gasparilla. So we have 1 weekend off.
Okay. Do you guys ever stay down and do the vacation thing in between shows?
It's all different because before COVID, Renee wasn't consistently on the road with me because we had children who, well, our youngest still needed her around.
Right.
And then right when COVID hit, he was old enough that he didn't need mom around to keep everything in line and together. So
gotcha.
Then,
party time.
She got sidelined there. So this is really kind of our first full year of everywhere we go, it's together as partnership.
All right. She sick of you yet?
She has every reason to be sick of me, but she hasn't shown any
so
indication.
Do I, Renee. So do I.
Okay, fine. I'll just go crawl under a rock somewhere. No.
Not at all. Not at all. So you're back from Coconut Grove. It's nice to see you. How was the show? You had a pretty good weekend?
Weekend was good. I have no complaints. I had a good drive. I should say I had an uneventful drive. After that last trip we did out to California, I think we banked all of the road drama for a lifetime. So,
as I've said to others, don't get cocky.
Yeah, right.
The universe is lying in wait.
Yeah, waiting to give you that 1-2 punch when you feel like you're in the clear. Well, our good friend who wasn't in the clear was Ben Fry. His van broke down in Orlando.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, did he have to rent one in Orlando to get the rest of the way?
Yes. So it turns out his van is dead man walking. But yeah, he was so close and yet so far, he wasn't able to set up until the morning of the show.
Oh, my God.
And
Brutal.
It was a nightmare waiting for tow truck and getting to the bottom of what was wrong with it. But he did it.
You know what, though? Also saw a really fancy bright blue ribbon in his booth by the end of the weekend, too. So with great trouble comes great reward, I guess.
Yeah, it was really well-deserved. His work is just amazing. And
I saw the image of the booth shot and everything with the blue ribbon. Everything show looks nice with a nice big blue ribbon on it, doesn't it?
Nice shiny ribbon on it, yeah. So he did good. And I was happy to be near him and Camille, and our next door neighbors Farhana and Rod were just such pleasant people.
Did you just name drop the show director by first name without her last? That's Camille. We had tea.
No, you know that Ben has a girlfriend named Camille.
I did not know she was there. Did you get to meet her?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So as we know, our good friend in artist companies say, he says he never has to do this in his personal life. He never has to say me and Camille and then clarify it's not the director of Coconut Grove. It is my girlfriend, Camille.
Right.
But yeah, so.
So that's how you got the best in show. Way to go, Ben.
But, yeah, so Farhana and Rod, wonderful, kind people. We could just sit and have these awesome conversations all weekend, which we did. So that was a nice time.
Excellent. I love those guys. They are up in the mountains of Virginia.
Rod had such complimentary things to say about the podcast, and he did let me know, Will, that your scripts are shit. And that he does believe that I need to stop giving you all of the mean lines.
That's the part I play. I'm going to break down the third wall. Well, good. Sounded like you have a nice little neighborhood there in Coconut Grove. Was it one long road this year, or did they change the layout a little bit?
Layout was pretty similar. The only thing that it was fewer exhibitors. So we were more spaced out. And I think there were typically 2 rows of booths down Pan Am or Pan American?
I think. Yeah.
Anyway, so it was a single row down. Yeah, nope, it was good. And apparently the show was cursed by a witch.
Huh. Okay. Tell me more.
Well, so load-in was a little tricky. Love Camille. Name drop the show director again, if I may.
Give us her last name if we're going to name drop. Let's go first and last.
You want me to massacre her last name, you do?
Yeah, put it on us.
Okay, Camille, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I'm going to pronounce it Camille Marchese. She's been laying out shows for Winter Park for 20-some years. So this isn't her first rodeo. But so she took over at the Grove, and the setup, there was a section of the show where the spreadsheet went haywire, and the booth numbering was wrong. You can anticipate what kind of troubles that's going to give when, the first 2 artists set up and then the other ones come and they don't have a spot, and it's Dominoes. Just chaos. Yeah.
Right. On down the line.
Yeah. So she did her absolute best. She understands it's a shitty situation for artists to come into, and she did her best to try and solve it and be reasonable and make accommodations. But that was a pretty hard thing at setup. And then she gets home and she's got this long email from a woman who says she is a witch, and she's put a curse on the show. It literally goes on for pages and pages. This woman says her name is Sandra Ramillion, and she's a Haitian witch living in Lauderdale.
I don't want any of this. I don't even know if I want to hear anymore. Okay, so why is she angry at the show?
It's basically crazy ramblings, but it just happened to coincide with this funky setup deal. But the next day, the show opens and things were good, and everything went off pretty flawlessly from that point on. So obviously, this is just the ramblings of insanity coming through, but it just seemed like
I'm glad I wasn't there. So the Witchmaid setup goes slightly askew. A couple of the numbers that were off. Our boy Ben's van broke down, but besides that, did she make the porta-johns run out of toilet paper or the water run blood?
Well, one of the problems you end up having when the people coming through the gate are higher than normal is, you start going through the vital services like toilet paper a lot faster than as planned. So yes, the sanitation services were having a little trouble keeping up with the masses, let's just say.
All right, the mass of the masses. All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't know how to run a show, but you got to have empathy for the people that do.
Yeah.
All I know about porta-johns is I don't want them next to my booth.
For sure. And no, they were placed in their normal spots. That was all fine. You need to have a cool, level-headed director who problems are going to happen, and you just have to deal with them head on. You're going to know that people are going to be mad that there's no toilet paper in the porta-johns, or you're going to know that some mistake is going to happen, and you've got to put out a lot of fires. And one big fire that got put out at the Grove this weekend, which people are talking about online, is there was an artist who wasn't in his booth selling his own work. He was at another show with a rep in the booth, and
So he was double dipping. He
was
got
double
got
dipping.
busted double dipping.
yep, he got sent packing.
I was talking to my wife earlier today, and that's what happens when you have cheaters and you have people behind the scenes that may not speak up, but
Yeah.
they're going to be upset about the things going forward. It's like, I know jewelers who import their stuff and it just hasn't really been proven. You've got people who are double dipping and trying to show at Naples and at Coconut Grove. You have watercolor or oil artists who are jurying in under digital. It's all a short-sighted business model, and it had me thinking, the burden of doing that is that a lot of those guys just don't have any friends. Like, they can't be honest with other people. You know, you can't really tell people what you're doing. You're not going to be like if I crushed it at Fall Bayou, and you and I are friends, and we got to talk about it. I just had
Right.
another big sale from that. And it's like, okay,
Sweet.
my business model is all on the up and up. So I don't have to hide anything from my friends.
Yeah.
And I get to actually have friends and be honest with them. So you're not constantly covering your lies.
They have to operate like an island, keep all the stories straight so they don't get out. And it's just exhausting.
You know, you have people backstage rooting for you to fail constantly. And that guy that and I don't want to mention him by name, but the guy that got booted from the Grove is apparently busy at work scrubbing his show schedule from his website, and he's gotten himself in trouble. So
he's in the soup. He's in the soup,
Yeah,
and it was caused by himself. It's like the rules are clear. No double dipping. Don't send reps. So you got busted. Don't act like you're not doing it or you haven't ever done it or whatever. It happened, and don't frickin' do it. And understand that people are going to be pissed at you when you do.
Or not give a rip if you fall, you know?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know what the guy's situation is. We walk a mile in each other's shoes, and who knows what has pushed this guy to the brink. But if, you know, on the front page, it just seems like greed, you know?
Yeah.
You look at it by the surface value, it's like, oh, well, it's just greedy, and you're trying to do more, and that's not what this business is about. It's about the personal connections that we make with our clientele, and you can't do that with a rep. And cheater's going to go.
Yeah.
They got to go down. Sorry.
Yep. So, and I think it brings up good conversations. I mean, it showed that we had a director who was willing to follow their rules. There are a lot of directors who are afraid of that confrontation, afraid of backlash, afraid of what if they get it wrong. And how can we create systems that can make it a little easier for these directors? And it's a good conversation that's going on the NAIA forum. So anyone who wants to jump on Facebook and read and participate and jump in on that, I think it's a good conversation moving forward on how to tackle this problem.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. And I think it's kind of funny because right now you have two kinds of artists. You have, well, right here on the podcast, you got my boy Douglas, who is headed out down south with his lovely wife Renee to sell the work that they've been cranking out all winter, and they are just knee deep in art shows and production and doing the thing. Then you have artists like me who are trying to make work in the studio, who don't have a show until March or April, who have a little bit of time on their hands. So it's interesting to see, like, the Facebook, it starts spiking in the red like this time of year when people aren't quite out on the shows.
Oh.
And so the people that are...
Because they got the time on their hands. And
yeah, they got time on their hands to get a little shitty and dig down deep. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to be the one that makes a stand. So you're seeing some people make some stands and get some work done to kind of weed out some of the cheaters. And nobody likes cheaters.
I just want to say that you having that time on your hands, you did a really good thing with helping an emerging kind of a brand new artist at the Grove get their feet wet and have a successful first event at a good show like that. So,
you know, I appreciate you bringing that up. And I do have a lot of plans with the NAIA with the Emerging Artists Program. The Emerging Artists Program is not in the future going to look like Will holds your hand through the entire show process and tells you how to rent pro panels and tells you how many zip ties you're going to need.
Hey, everybody, Will is going to read the packets for you and tell you exactly what's in the packet.
I'm not. I am not. But, you know, we talked about Camille a little bit, and we're pumping her up because she just had a great first Grove. You know, it's not her first rodeo, but she really cared about this kid, and he got juried into the show, and he'd never even been to an art show. So It's not always going to be ground up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's not always going to be like, well, here's a picture of an art show. But that's the way this guy was, and from all tell, he had a really good weekend. So,
well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, you helped get him the foundational tools, you know, the display, and get him set up and give him the tips that he might need, and then he could make the rest of it happen. So
yeah,
that's really great. I mean, I'm really happy you did that.
Well, I mean, it's about the next generation and trying to keep the wheels on our industry, because I want to keep doing this probably for another 20 years. You've been doing this for a while. We've seen shows come and go. We've seen shows that don't want to do it anymore. We've seen shows that have circled the drain, the shows that used to be excellent. So that are no longer excellent. They've let their quality slip, that we don't attend any longer.
But one thing I found kind of interesting this weekend, which I hadn't had before, I don't know if people are so used to like Uber Eats or saying, hey, I want this and it's going to be delivered to me. But I was getting texts and phone calls from my card saying, hey, I was at the show and you had this one piece for $150. Yeah, can you just drive that up to Boca Raton and drop that off for me? And I'll be like, no, actually, you can order that on our website. Yeah, but I don't want to pay shipping.
So they want you to spend $60 in gas?
I had 5 or 6 people that I funneled them to the website and they had to pay for shipping. But yeah, they wanted me to like do the rounds. Now, this isn't like going to hang a cluster of $2,500 wall grouping or something. This is like a $150 piece.
So how much does it cost to make Douglas dance? If you're not
dancing
for
threshold?
150, there is a threshold, right?
Yeah, there is.
Mine is like my wingspan. If it's bigger than my wingspan, then I'm doing.
You can fit that under your arm and walk it to the car. So Will's not delivering it, but if it's wide enough for the arms to be wide, you'll bring it to him.
Absolutely. No, that is an interesting question. It's like, well, what do you know what I will typically do, and you can probably do this with Renee being there, is like just find the closest entrance.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will be like, when they do buy a big piece or just, I mean, I don't really sell too many small ones, but, they're buying a nice piece from me. I just ask them, we're like, well, how do you want it to your car? You can carry it, or, you just bought a nice piece of artwork. No reason to carry it yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're like, well, you'll just walk away from your booth? I'm like, yeah.
It's not like you're a jeweler or something where your whole booth is going to walk away.
That's my 2D privilege speaking again.
Well, speaking of jewelers, you had a pretty interesting, exciting talk with your friend Betty Jäger from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yep, got Betty on this weekend talking about a little privilege. We're going to get hot. We got a hot one, Douglas.
Okay. So this is the point in the show where we offer the disclaimer, where we say that the viewpoints of our guest are of theirs alone. They do not reflect either of the hosts. They may or may not reflect the host.
They may.
They may or they may not.
Yep. You're trying to wiggle out of being a 50-year-old cisgendered white male, Douglas. That's what you're doing.
Oh, am I?
Now he's dancing, ladies and gentlemen.
No, we just want to let everybody know that she has some opinions, which we love and we find really refreshing that she speaks her mind and has her opinions, but it's not going to make everybody feel comfortable. And so it is okay to disagree, but it is not necessarily the opinions of our sponsors or the NAIA or ZAP.
You know what? We're trying to cover ourselves in case somebody disagrees, but nobody's always going to agree with every point that our guests make. What's great about Betty is you're going to catch a different side, a different view of somebody that you might not necessarily know. And that's what I love about the podcast. We're sitting down and talking to people that just digging deep and getting to know people. And that's what I want to do with my conversations, is just to let another voice be heard. So if you want to talk about things, use our Facebook page. You can jump on and start a topic. Keep it friendly, keep it fresh. We will be, we love interacting with the listeners and interacting with our fellow artists. Again, we're just doing this for fun and to get the voices heard.
In every story that we talk to, There is something about it. There's some kernel that really encapsulates us as a community. And what I love about your talk with Betty is that she really has like no apologies. She will say, I am blatantly supporting the community that has always had my back. And I think that loyalty and that respect is awesome. And she has that right. We all have that right to make decisions for ourselves as independent artists, as independent business people making a living. So it was really cool and really fun. What a fun personality to hear her story.
Yeah, she's an amazing human. And I'm looking forward to you guys hearing the talk. Looking forward to the blowback. This episode of the Independent Artist Podcast is called Fuck You, Here's Betty.
All right, here we are. Betty Jäger from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
This episode of the Independent Artist Podcast is brought to you by Zap, the digital application service where artists and art festivals connect.
I see here there are some new features with the events list category through Zap, which will help us with looking up new shows to fill a spot in our schedule.
You know, I feel like I should have something to say, but I wasn't really listening to you because I'm looking at the events list right now, and it's pretty cool. Okay, so you drop the menu down, and there at the bottom, go scrolling all the way, about third thing down in the smaller print, it just says events list.
That's right. All of the shows appear here, regardless of their application deadline. You can use filtering and sorting to narrow down your search to find the right show that fills your desired time frame or location.
I know a lot of people love that calendar. I like seeing the list of events. I like scrolling through and doom scrolling late at night. It's like online dating. They don't let you swipe left or right, but you can figure out who you want to date coming up here.
It's my buddy.
Good to see you.
Good to see your face. How are you?
I'm good. Let me start this recording. The room sounds good. Let's do a little test.
Testes, 1, 2, 3.
All right, we're going to have a good time.
Duh.
So, how you been?
Okay.
You doing okay? Everything, how's life?
Life is okay. It's weird in the bubble, but all things considered, I don't have too many complaints.
Yeah, I mean, you are in a bubble. Like, you're not doing shows at all, are you?
Nope.
No one can hear you shake your head. No, it's just a podcast.
No.
No, you're not doing anything. Did you even apply for anything?
No.
Yeah. Are you bummed about that?
Yeah.
I mean, you can still apply to some shit.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes, I don't know. It's like I worked so hard to get into those shows that I was doing. And now it's been 2 years since I've applied to anything. And part of me feels like I don't have to reinvent the wheel, but it's like I probably should get new jury shots.
Sure.
I should probably be applying with things that haven't sold.
Do you really think that's the case?
I don't know. I feel like I finally got a good photographer and I finally got good images, but those pieces are God knows where anymore.
Right. Some of them are completely gone. Just poof. Who knows? Walked away.
Bye.
Like, what I love about you is, like, I remember, well, we first met, but then I knew you were at ACC Baltimore, and I was there helping my wife, Susan Elnora Jewelry, set her work up. And Susie just looks her head up. And she goes, "Betty's here." And I was like, "What?" And I'm like, she goes, "Shh, listen." And then we listen. And that's what we heard, like 3 aisles over. I'm like, Betty's coming. And then it was like a thunderstorm. It got a little louder. And I'm like, oh, yeah, here she comes. It's coming. And you're a force. I mean, and that's the thing. You're a social force, too. And so it kind of freaks me out that you're not out there doing shows. You've totally reinvented yourself as far as who you sell to and how do you do it.
How to get the goods.
Yeah. But you don't seem to be having any trouble.
Nah. My people know where to find me. They know how to find me.
How'd you do it?
I think it's because I only sold in person once upon a time. I don't have a website. My website's a Tumblr that I haven't touched in 2 years, maybe. I think the other day somebody was like, "Yeah, your website's not working." And I'm like, "What website?"
Right. There's a reason that's not working. It doesn't exist.
It's basically a page with my contact info. I think that putting myself in that position once upon a time when I was doing shows has only helped me make a little scratch. I never wanted a website. where you could just go and see my entire collection of work.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to ship shit before the pandemic. So I told everyone that I only shipped through FedEx as a deterrent because it would cost them $96 to have something shipped.
Nice.
2 states over. That's not the case anymore. Thank you,
No.
USPS. You have not lost any of my packages, and I love you.
Not yet, right? Don't get cocky. Man, I know, but that's what I love about you too. It's like there's something very kind of punk rock, rock and roll about your work, about your imaging, about the way you go about your business. And what I think is cool about that is that you refuse to kind of change that, even though you've had to change your business model.
Yeah. I've always kind of done what I wanted. You could probably ask Susie to attest to that because she's known me for almost 20 years.
Right.
And, you know, it's like if you want a boogie, you got to pay the band, but I'm the band and I'm the boogie machine. So, like,
it's not going to be hard to title this episode. So, I mean, it's like you've got this thing, you're out there on Instagram. I've always felt, and I think you're the same way, that if you want me, you got to meet me. And it's like we have to have a personal connection. And if I'm having a shitty show, then I'm looking at myself and be like, well, I'm sitting in my chair, my arms are crossed. I'm not engaging with anybody. I'm not particularly likable. Okay, get off your ass, get up, engage with the people, open it up, and be yourself, you know? And how are you doing that online?
I think I'm still following my own rules, you know. For the longest time, I feel like I've heard you got to do this. You got to post every day. You got to make reels. You got to do hashtags. And it's like, I don't have to do any of that if I don't want to. And you can follow that if you want because it works for other people. But I think as artists, we all started doing this because we didn't want to have a fucking boss. We don't want to have somebody telling us what to do, when to do it, and what pot to shit in. And I still, that whole thing of you got an audience, fall and let them catch you.
Right.
And that continues to work. And, you know, I don't make normal shit and I don't work with normal people. And I've always had that freak flag flying pretty high. And I think it just got a little higher.
You definitely have, and that's what I love about you, and that's what I loved about you immediately when I met you. And it's like it took you about 20 minutes, I feel like, when you came on the art show scene before people really knew you and were like, oh my God, do you know Betty Jäger? I'm like, yeah, I know Betty Jäger. And that's what I miss. Like, you're kind of a younger, up and coming badass, and then all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore. It's like, do you think you'll get back to it, or are you just enjoying what you're...
Oh, absolutely. I hate this shit. I hate being by myself. I don't have an audience. It's like, you know, we make this cool stuff and that in-person banter, learning about new people and learning about new experiences and being able to share your stories with people and see where you have similar landing points or touch points. I miss human beings. I miss my friends. I mean, I went to Des Moines and I didn't tell anyone because I just wanted to see my friends and get some fucking hugs.
That was amazing. You came down from the Twin Cities area. You're up, your studio's up there, and you dropped down to Des Moines for the day. And I think you just did a one, like, down and back. You didn't even hang and party with us later, did you?
I didn't. Part of it was like, I don't know if I have become such a Luddite and such a homebody. I didn't know what would happen to me when I got around a bunch of people. Like, pandemic, yes, but also as a single human being who's like 3 really close friends moved away during the pandemic. Like, I didn't know if I still had it, and I didn't know if I still wanted to be around that many people, because doing an art fair that's a lot of people. That's not just like 4 people rolling through my studio in a 4-hour time period. I miss shows. I miss my friends. I miss meeting new people. I miss learning new stuff.
How'd that feel for you? Was it weird? Was it like get back into the public and walk in the street? And because Des Moines don't give a shit about the masks outside and anything else, because it was like, it's like no pandemic. Des Moines was on. No rules, no regulations, just kind of raw dogging it. It was
Des Moines.
Right. I think that's their new city motto, actually. Get down 35 and raw dog it in Des Moines.
I never even applied to the Des Moines show because I didn't have like a quote unquote professional tent. So I was like, maybe one day I'll go visit it and see what it's all about.
Susie showed up in an Easy Up, I think, and they moved her to a rental. But they're particular. Those Des Moines storms are no joke.
I mean, storms are no joke, and I think they're only getting worse. But it's not like I'm coming in hot with a Walmart tent. I mean, I've done these shows a million times, and I do it as safe as possible.
Yeah.
And when I have to set up my jewelry and it takes me 3 hours in the morning to do that and an hour to put it away at night, the last thing I want to do is spend an extra 3 hours putting up a fucking tent.
Yep. I hear you. But you're safe. You're out there. And if the weather wants you, the weather takes you.
Yeah, right. Wind. That's one thing I don't miss is fucking wind. Wind can eat my ass.
I used to love wind. I used to love sitting up, and now it gives me heart palpitations. I'm like, oh God.
And at our age, we don't need any more of that shit.
No, we don't, right? I had this one. I'll tell you a quick story. I don't want to make it about me. This one's about you, but I was doing Greenville Artisphere, and I was up at the top of the hill, and I was between two buildings, so it was creating a wind tunnel anyway. And then when a storm came through, it forced through the wind, and I'm hanging my big dumb ass off the top of the tent, and I'm going like Captain Ahab, you want me, you fucking take me, and I'm screaming against the wind, and it's like everything's cutting in. I look behind me, there's a burger joint, and if I let go of the tent, it's going to go right into the porch where all these 50 people are hanging, and I'm never going to be able to work again because I'm going to be sued. And I'm sitting there hanging, and I realize like the storm is over just as quick as it began, and I realize that only me was affected. So I'm just hanging on this tent like a maniac screaming, and everybody else is like, what's his fucking problem?
What is his problem?
It's a little drizzle.
What you got in your coffee, Mr. Armstrong?
That's right. People ask it, man. Hey, speaking of what's in your coffee, this is how I picture you working. You got a joint in the corner of your mouth. You're squinting against the smoke. You got a hammer in your hand, and you're just like, fucking let's go. Just bang. She's like, yeah, I work with her. That's good. How's the weed work for you in your working process? I know you're a fan.
Fantastically.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of different strains that do a bunch of different shit for me. I got some edibles. I do not drink when I am making jewelry. I did it once on accident and I have permanent nerve damage in my thumb. I don't even drink that much anymore because it was such a social activity, but weed keeps me steady. I don't know how my hands are so steady with how much coffee I drink. Yeah. It's great. It's not like it's doing the work for me.
I'm an occasional smoker, very rarely. And I remember you passed something on to me at one show, and I went out on the back porch and I smoked it, and I did not sleep that night. I was like, my head was going a million miles an hour. I feel like I was hanging out with Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson. And I just was like, Jesus Christ. I can't. What the fuck was that?
I gotta remember that my strains are very strong.
Yeah. Warner brother. What's
really
happening?
Sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. But it made me aware of the fact that, I'm not sitting around with my friends playing music and hanging out and just whatever. This is a different thing. Like, what are you smoking, Betty?
A steady strain of Stativa when I'm at the studio. Really, I think I probably have a very special pH in my body of ADD, ADHD, little seasonal depression.
Right. I don't mean to laugh. I'm totally with you.
No, everyone's got their different shit, man. Yeah. Western medicine's never done a damn thing for me except for get me high in the way that I don't want to.
Yep.
And growing up in Washington State, I think the THC might have just been in my bloodstream. And,
it might have been.
I don't really do anything else. Every once in a while, I'll have a little shot of whiskey.
Sure. But that Stativa is an active ingredient, right? Is that like...
So you got two different strains of weed. You got Stativa, which is a little more active, and then you got indica, which means into couch, which probably puts most folks to sleep or relaxes them. I drink coffee. Yeah. I mean, I've always kept weird hours, and I've finally come to a point where I'm like, I should have no shame about getting up at noon or 1 and just fucking keeping those wheels turning until 2 or 3 in the morning. There's something about the nighttime that feels like the right time for me to be creating, almost like I'm like a magic jewelry gremlin, just like stoking the fire all night long.
Rumpelstiltskin, and you wake up in the morning and you got a pile of jewels.
Pretty much. Sometimes that does happen. I'll work through the night and go home because I'm tired and come back and be like, who made this?
That's amazing. See, like I have to stop. Like I think I am the weirdo, and I've mentioned this before, but I work banker's hours, and I don't know what that's about, but like that's when I feel my most productive. And then like I am just this weird 9-to-5 guy, and that's like that kind of fits the model, I guess, for me. But I just do it.
I don't
and
think
then
that's
the light,
so weird.
yeah, but the light affects me too, and I hope it doesn't you. But like that, I can't work late at night. Really, the light changes. I don't like that. I prefer more the natural light for finishing, and I don't know, it's tough.
There's definitely like, do I have any rules? I tend to not set diamonds at nighttime because the daylight is much better, so you can really see like what the stones are doing. And I also tend to not work on customers' jewelry late at night in case something wild happens.
So like custom stuff.
Yeah, so I'm just like letting my freak flag fly late at night, and it works for me.
How do you balance custom work being kind of mostly an online guy and doing the shit that you want to do? Because that custom work takes me 10 times longer than the shit that I want to make.
Yeah, or even the perception of it, like, oh God, I got to do this stuff. And I think about it for a month, and I think about how hard it's going to be, and then I do it, and it takes me an hour. And I'm like, what are you fucking around for? Like,
but that's work. You were working, right?
It's all work. I mean, it's all work. That whole like, do something you love and it never feels like a day of work. That's bullshit. But also, that's bullshit. I love what I do, and I think at this point I can confess that it does come pretty naturally. Getting weird and trying stuff. Someone recently told me that I have a gift, and that is not being afraid of fucking up. Like
that is a gift.
I'm like, I don't care. Like, as long as I'm not melting down the same thing in the same way, as long as I learn from each mistake, I'm not scared of making mistakes. I'm not scared of losing time. Materials is a different thing. If I break a 1 carat diamond.
Well, yeah. There's tears, right? Definitely. But your work is not, we're not talking about Dave Gilletti here. We're talking about Betty Jäger. There's something wide open about your work. Dave has this precision that's very, like, if one line is out of place, then you know it if you're looking at his work. Whereas your work, it's like one line is out of place. Fuck you. Here's another one. It's more like jazz.
Or if something is too symmetrical, I'm like, oh, I don't like you. I got to fuck you up. I got to like toss you across the room. This is bugging me. Like, woo.
Right.
Those two things next to each other look like eyeballs or titties. I can't stand it. Like,
so with that custom work, is there that pressure because it's somebody else's perception of your work, or do you still get to go wide open?
I think that I have curated a really cool clientele base, and it is very, very few and far between where I have a client that is so rigid that is like, I need this way, and I need this color diamond in this exact size. And I think that I have taken so much time in finding my people and having conversations with them before starting the project where I can say, hey, this is a really good idea. I want to make sure that you're not concrete on having this 90-degree angle here. And if you just give me a little artistic freedom, I promise I won't make something that sucks.
That's amazing.
Like, standing in front of my work, people can see what I do. They can kind of see that there's no actual formula to it. And if you try and put me in a box, it's not going to work.
No, that's not going to go well for anybody. So let's talk about your people. You're mostly online now. Is it mostly just Instagram?
Yeah, I sell on Instagram through my stories about once a month or so. Some things happened to me in my formative years of working with Susie at Studio Vincent, where I saw a couple of really talented artists at the beginning of the internet get totally ripped off. Like, I saw a company be like, we're going to do this great thing. We're going to put everything online in a shopping cart and you can just push buttons. And someone copied all their designs, mass manufactured them in China, and made cheap, shitty replicas. That was the early 2000s.
Yeah, brutal.
And that scared the shit out of me. Not like I'm so cool, everyone's going to copy me, but more so like, I don't want one of my clients wearing my rings, going out into public and seeing someone with a cheap replica of it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why I don't want a website with, I mean, it would be like, for me, it would be like standing naked in front of a bunch of straight white cis people. I don't want it all out there dangling in the wind.
Yeah, I hear you. So okay, but you're putting it out on Instagram and you're doing your stories.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are these people that found you on Instagram, or are they people that met you in person? You kind of cultivate relationships and then they follow you through Instagram.
Yes.
Got it. Everything all the time.
A little bit of both. Also, I feel like something I've always said and I've always believed is I get my best clients through my best clients. I've never really spent a dime on advertisements. And so if I have a good client, I will treat them well. I will make sure they get the really good shit or first dibs on a new batch of diamonds. I'm not talking discounts, but like cultivating a relationship. And when I send them a package, be like, hey, there's like 3 business cards in there. If you don't mind putting one in your wallet, because you obviously really dig my shit and you're going to tell your mail person or your sister-in-law or some stranger on the street that's like, what the fuck is that?
Right on. Yeah.
Who made
So this is why I wanted to talk to you too about this, because like there's no set way. I mean, you could do the Betty way. You got enough work. You're turning shit down. You're turning down the custom work.
My customs have been closed for 8 months.
Amazing. And they're not really closed though, right? Can I eke through?
You know, a cute queer person is like, hey, I want to propose to my sweetie. And I'm like, fuck yeah, straight people out of the way. You get what you want already. Sorry.
You always tag your stuff. Not at all. Never. You don't apologize. You always tag yourself queer artist. Why is that important?
Taking care of a community that's always been pushed to the side. Taking care of our own. I don't know. I'm the fucking boss. I think that visibility is really important. I think taking care of the community that's always taking care of me is really important. And also maybe to keep my DMs free and clear of people being like, hey.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, yeah, don't fucking call me a lady. I got your lady right here. Like,
right. Yeah, but inclusivity is super important to you, and it is on a broader scale. And it's like, here I am doing the podcast. You know, Douglas and I were born one day apart in 1970. We found that out later. So here we are, a couple of 51-year-old white dudes making our art, and we want to be more inclusive. What do we do to make things a little bit more inclusive too?
You learn, you read some books, you get the access to the same shit I do. That's why when people are like, how do you learn that? It's like, open your fucking ears and pay attention to what's going on, and you decide what's important in your world, and you decide how you're going to include other people and make sure that Black people and brown people and queer people and trans people and ace people have a space in what you're doing, instead of catering to an audience that has always been catered to. The world is run by rich, white, straight, cisgendered dudes, and their time is fucking up. They've had their spotlight. And if one aging, queer, cisgendered woman, that be me, can make people feel a little more special in this fucked up world, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that, you know, their light's a little brighter. They got a safe space, even if it is on the internet. Like, whatever. We make our own rules. I feel like my parents always taught me rule number 1, don't be an asshole. Be a decent
isn't that
human
the basis?
Being.
Like, that's the DNA. Basis. Like, that's the baseline. Yeah. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah. It's pretty
it's
fucking
not that
easy.
hard.
No, it's not. And it's also really easy to be an asshole and close yourself off into a bubble and not learn. And I think that sounds lonely and boring. And I got the lonely part covered. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not boring.
You're definitely not boring, Betty. You've never been boring. Clifton Henry, earlier episode, I can't remember if he said this to me on the podcast, but it's like, you can't love Black culture if you don't love Black folks. it's such a great baseline too, but it seems so simple, but so many people fuck it up.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to close yourself off from the world and be like, I know what I know and I'm good with it. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I want to learn new shit every day. I'm 6 feet above, not 6 feet under. Like,
Yeah.
why would you not want to grow more and learn more and try and be a better person for the people in your life and also for the people on the outskirts of your life? What people you don't even fucking know. You don't have to know somebody to try and take care of them.
Yeah.
You don't have to know someone personally to want to make sure that they're going to be okay. Like, it's not that hard to be a good person. I think it takes more effort to be a closed off asshole.
Amen. It really does.
Right. Nice talk. See.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Detroit.
Fargo, Rock City. One of the things that I love about you bringing that inclusivity into your work and into your posts on Instagram is that a lot of times when you do those sales, you like to give back to the community, and you have these things and you're like, you're bringing that back. Like, talk to me a little bit about that and why that's important.
I think that highlighting marginalized communities is important because I'm pretty sure anyone looks at me, they're probably like, oh, what a nice straight white girl. Like, I am the furthest thing from straight, which is great. It's a nice cover sometimes, but also I'm going to use that straight white girl power to help people. Kind of like, when you are asked to white man it up.
Yeah, totally. And that's it. You don't always get those opportunities, and sometimes those present themselves, and sometimes you're just like, you can just get in there and be like, hey, I'm just going to use my 6'2" white straightness and just kind of step in and be an ally if I can. Mm-hmm. And again, it just goes back to the kindness thing.
Yeah, you got a little, give a little. You got a lot, give a lot. There's so many companies out there that make so much fucking money and they don't give back to the communities that are helping them succeed.
No, and they don't even see the irony in shooting giant cock-shaped rockets into space and having that much money. It's like, could there be a bigger metaphor for too much money? Just sending your giant dick into space?
Ick, gross. No,
right.
Thank you.
So you talked about your parents a little bit, and your parents taught you if you have a little, give a little. If you have a lot, give a lot. And you're trying to give back. Your overhead gets cut when you are dealing with COVID, and all of a sudden you're shut into your house and you're not spending money on gasoline and car repairs and everything else.
And
so
hotel
you're giving
rooms
back.
And show fees and jury
So
fees.
who are you giving back to?
I've learned a lot from a lot of my friends in Minneapolis, and I'm less about charity and I'm more about mutual aid.
Mm-hmm.
Because charity's like, I have all this money and I'm going to use it for a little bit of power and a little bit of clout. Whereas mutual aid would be like, you are helping individuals or an organization make a community better. If you can do it, why not do it?
Nice.
I like to focus on Indigenous groups, Black groups, specifically Black trans organizations, because I am a queer person and there are so many things I have to be thankful for because of Black trans women and men.
Right.
I'm a part of the queer community, and the queer community has always had my back. So I got to turn that around and do that as well. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of my inspiration and friends and family, not blood family, is Indigenous. And like the Indigenous culture is something that's a part of my upbringing, even though I am totally white. And I want to make sure that those people are taken care of. One of my favorite organizations is Adopt an Elder, which is helping elder Indigenous folks. They have done a lot of work in helping those artists get their art out into the public, and they do it for free. So you've got a tradition of making rugs that's about as old as dirt.
Yeah.
And they help these communities get their art into the eyes of more people. They also help them hold on to their tradition a little bit longer. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, I feel like marginalized communities need our help. I just want to help people. But also, if I can inspire someone else to be a little less selfish and a little more looking out for the people that have inspired them, loved them, taught them, support them, why the fuck not? It's like everyone learns in a different way in a different capacity. And I think when you see someone else doing something that is good, that it resonates with those good human beings, and maybe it'll catch like wildfire. And if not, maybe I can just give some money to some people who could really benefit from it.
Right. And it definitely sticks out in my mind because whenever, I follow you on your Instagram and I look at your stories and I always see that you're giving back to things that are precious and special to you. And it does inspire. I don't want to just take through my work and just go into these communities and take. And it's cool to try to, try to connect on a deeper level with the humans.
Like, I'm just gonna get pissed and salty for a minute here. Like when Jazz Fest was canceled.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, hurricane came through. And I saw online a lot of artists were like, Jazz Fest is canceled. Woo, 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 woo. How about you take that fucking booth fee and you donate it to a mutual aid in Louisiana for people who have been helping you make so much fucking money at that festival? Like, do you know how far that's going to go to get people a generator so they can live in a house with lights? So the refrigerator can work? Like, we should be giving back to these communities that we just like float through once a year.
Right.
Besides the whole like, well, we're going and we're spending money for an Airbnb or we're going to restaurants. It's like, we can be a little bigger than that and we can give back to the communities that make our job a job.
Yeah. What about the communities that are just filled with rich assholes, though? Can we just take from them?
Fuck them. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I charge them extra.
Yeah, no discount.
Republican tax, old white guy tax, weird glasses tax. You got your gun showing tax. Go fuck yourself. I'm going to take your money and you're going to love it. You're going to come back for more.
Goddamn right. All right. So let's talk about activism here and what you lived with through COVID. You were on kind of ground zero of George Floyd. And I mean, it's not even too far from where you work.
Oh, it's like a half a mile from my house.
Yeah. I mean, you were in the shit. So talk to me a little bit about that.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
I was very tense. I mean, I'd never seen so many fucking guns in my entire life. And it wasn't the citizens. It was the fucking National Guard coming in, not wearing masks, and fucking up our city and scaring everyone with political shenanigans. I don't know. I feel like I was on an accelerated learning track.
Yeah.
I think what wasn't shown nationally, internationally, is the way that the community took care of their own and also didn't take any shit.
Right.
St. Paul Police Department, Minneapolis Police Department is one of the most dangerous organizations in the nation. They've killed so many black and brown people with zero regard for their life and zero regard for their responsibility. And I got a lot to say about that.
Bring it on.
There's like unmarked vehicles pulling over in neighborhoods, getting out of their cars, shooting guns into the air, and leaving. And those individuals were later found out to be police officers and people who work for the sheriff's department. It's just a bunch of shit. It is wild, and I wish that I could say that so much has changed. We're still not being heard. Black men are still being murdered by the police department here in Minneapolis.
I mean, I'll say that that's part of my privilege with that. I will definitely say that as far as like the education goes, because, I only know them through Susie and through you, but I follow Sweeney Brown on social and was remembering when they were having issues with the police. I mean, I respect what they have to say online. And so I'm watching and I'm looking, but I was also like, this is totally my privilege because they're sitting there saying how much they hate the police. And I'm sitting there going, oh, what's wrong with the police?
What's wrong with the police? They've only helped me because you're a white guy.
Yeah, sure.
Look at the outfit you get to wear.
Yeah.
The police department was started many, many moons ago to catch slaves. It is an organization that is built on racism and power exchange, and it hasn't changed. I have called the cops once in my entire life. I still kind of regret it, but also someone was trying to run me over with their car and they stole my credit card, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Other than that, no.
Okay.
No. Like, it's pretty eye-opening to see how much the police don't care, from going to protests and watching them just like rip in with their pellet guns into open crowds of women, children, people not wearing masks, not giving a shit about their community.
Yeah. How was it specifically at that time? Like, you're down in it. You're out there living it. You're still going to work, but you were out there protesting or demonstrating. There's a difference there in those words and what words we choose. But how was it being in the shit?
I mean, it was pretty exciting to go to protests and stand up for people and put my big dumb white body in front of my friends and make sure they didn't get hurt. I'd stand in between. Yeah. I'm a barrier, whatever. I got nothing to lose. I don't have any kids. I don't have a partner. Right. What am I going to lose? Like, I would much rather put my mouth and my body in the way and also listen and learn and try and unsow the racist seeds that are in my genes and your genes and all the shit that we're taught. And it was a lot, and it was exhausting, and it was fucking scary. But also, I'm a white girl, so I'm like, it's not scary for me because this is something I've always paid attention to, but also maybe more people are paying attention to it now. If you don't stand up for what you fucking believe in, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What? It's not like, if you don't stand for something, you stand for no. If you don't stand for something, you're a piece of shit. How about that?
I don't think that's going to be a very popular bumper sticker. That's
I don't give
Betty.
a fuck.
I know. That's why I love you. But it was really crazy to see my adopted city in Minneapolis through my wife, and then my city that I spent 99.9% of my life in erupting at the same time, because we had this beautiful street of pristine Confederate monuments that all of a sudden people opened their eyes to and said, wait a minute, fuck this too, at the same time,
A lot of people of color were very aware of that. And something took all the old white people. So it took something for them to wake up and be like, whoa, hey, we just got a row of racists and rapists and pillagers. Yeah. Let's burn it down.
And for anybody that's listening to the podcast too, and we talk about privilege and it might be balking at the same, like, I don't know about this. I'm like, well, here's a specific example of my, what we call white privilege. And it's the fact that I grew up walking distance to the Confederate monuments, and I would just walk my dog down there. I delivered newspapers on Monument Avenue, walk down there, see the sculptures, and just think that they were pretty. They were just cool sculptures.
As you pass the Confederate Museum and the Confederate Cemetery.
As you pass the Daughters of the Confederacy
I forgot about
building,
those broads.
It was a separate thing. Like, well, we can't actually call it the Ku Klux Klan, so let's call it the Daughters of the Confederacy instead. And so, I mean, and opening my eyes to that, and then the way that feels, and then to see the incredible response sculpture that went in the Kehinde Wiley in front of the Virginia Museum that was at the intersection of Monument Avenue, that was, you can see this person of color riding in the same stance of pride as you do Stonewall Jackson down the road. So it was just my privilege to grow up within those and not have to think about what they meant, and to just be like, who cares? They're pretty. I went through a period in my life was like, nah, they're history.
Yeah, that doesn't mean they're right.
Right. And there any other place in history that has sculptures to the losing side?
Yeah, you want to put up a fucking statue of Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy? No.
Yeah.
It's glorified in the name of America, or it's glorified
or even George
in the name of freedom.
And there's a really amazing painting of pulling down King George after the Revolutionary War. And it's like, well, there you go. It's time.
Yeah, I'm glad lots of people are waking up. I mean, we all have a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn. There's tons of weird white supremacist behavior that I have to unlearn. If you can make the world a better fucking place, do it. If you can stand up for somebody, do it. If you can teach your old racist relatives a little something, do it.
Yeah.
There's small
Absolutely.
acts, there's big acts. Like, I never thought I would live in Minneapolis for so long, ever. But during the uprising was the first time that I felt a part of this community. And I felt welcomed into so many different communities. And doing whatever I can at the moment. I don't always have money. So sometimes that means, running food donations to schools or food banks or telling people about it. Like, hey, we don't all have money. Sometimes you can just like take a load of groceries, get money from your homies, get money from your rich, racist relatives, and go spend it on money for diapers for the community.
Why not? And, you know, if people are listening to this and they agree with some of the things that you've said or disagree with it, fuck it. At the end of the day, what we're boiling it down to is why can't you be a little bit more kind?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, isn't that what it's all about?
Just try and be a damn decent human being. And also, like, it's never too late to unlearn something. Never. It's like never too late to unravel something. Even if you're a racist on your deathbed, it's okay to be wrong. I promise.
Absolutely. And even like we were talking about this just the other day, we were talking about like, you know, like you can think that your parents aren't racist and then they'll drop well, he's very well spoken on you. And it's like, well, he's very well spoken. Did you just say like that? What the fuck was that?
Just said that.
That's
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Like that, do you not realize that that's a racist statement?
Oh, you sound so ignorant for a white person.
Like, you didn't say that about Jane Pauley. Why are you saying it about Oprah?
Hard eye roll for those of you who couldn't see that. Hard eye roll.
I don't know, but I feel like we could actually hear the eye roll.
I know.
Like we could actually.
You won't
like,
stop
you
twitching
okay?
now.
I saw the bottoms of your white. Jesus.
I mean, that's a small act of love, is teaching your racist relatives when they say something racist. I mean, I was always, you may not believe this, but I got in trouble a lot at the dinner table for telling my dad to shut the fuck up and not use a certain word. And he's like, I'm telling a story. I'm like, I don't give a shit about your fucking story. You can't talk like that. You can't say things like that.
Yeah.
It's 2020. Like, I unlearn things all the time.
Absolutely.
You know,
I remember hearing, I remember actually this, I remember it really clearly because my racist old grandparents and family, aunts and uncles were sitting around the dinner table and I was young and I heard the N-word for the first time. And I walked up to my grandfather and I asked him what it was. And I got a huge laugh and he just stopped talking and he stopped telling the story and came and talked to me later. He's like, look, you were not being raised with that. And I remember him apologizing for it. And I had having a long time. I was probably like 9 or 10 and having a conversation with my grandfather about, I don't know, it's just those kind of things. I don't know why. I do know why it sticks in my memory, but it's amazing what we have grown up with that you don't think of, you know, that you just live with. Or
like it continues to happen. And like, I'd shut that shit down at the dinner table and everyone else at the dinner table would be like, oh, you're being so rude. I'm like, I'm not the one saying racist words or homophobic words at a table where almost half of your children are queer.
Right?
Dad, mom, like, no. You know, when I came out to my dad when I was like 16 years old, I was like, what would you do if I brought a girl home? He's like, you bring girls home all the time. I'm like, no, like if I liked her, like her. He's like if you wanted a neck in the back of the car at a movie? And I'm like,
God.
Yeah, Dad. He goes, well, that depends. Is that on what? He goes, well, I don't really care who you date. You could date a man, you could date a woman, you could date a trans person. He didn't use those words, but we're just going to go with it.
Sure.
You could date black, brown, yellow, purple. I don't care. As long as they got a boat.
As long as they got a boat?
He's like, you can marry whoever you want, baby.
As long as they take me fishing?
Right. My dad's a fisherman. He's just like, he loves fishing. He's never done it for a living. He's done it to feed his family. He's done it for fun. You know what?
You can find common ground. Sometimes it's fishing, I guess, right?
I know. And I'm like, well, what kind of boat, Dad? I got to make sure that. He's like, I don't give a fuck. It could be a rowboat. It could be a canoe or a kayak. Shit. It could be a blow up Coleman raft from Target. I don't care. As long as they got a boat, that's okay. Which was, pretty different from how my brother's coming out was. And I'm like, Dad, did you forget that conversation? Because it's still true. Like I was very young when I knew. It wasn't a fun teenage life, let me tell you. But
I bet. Did he come out when you were much younger, like when you're high school age, or?
Yeah, to my parents. Well, to my dad, not to my mom. She couldn't. She's got so many weird, deeply rooted things that she learned from her mother that she hasn't unlearned, just like many of our parents from different generations. But like, I don't know, I've always been a fucking weirdo. I've always been queer. When I was in high school, I got called all the bad names in the world. Dyke, queer, butch, cunt, you name it, it was thrown at me. And I just... Sometime I learned to be like a duck and just let it roll off my back, because we're all going to have different opinions about each other, and some are more vocal, but I don't really give a shit. I'm just going to be who I am. And if that's me all by myself in the end in a dinghy.
Back to the boat. Common ground. Even if your common ground is a boat, it's got to go somewhere, right?
If your common ground's on water.
That's right. Oh, Jesus. I wanted to get down into it with you more than I wanted to hear about life story but your life story is interesting too.
I started making jewelry at a very young age out of whatever I could get my hands on, and then realized after somebody told me I couldn't go to college because they didn't have money for it, and I could make jewelry for a living. I had always done it for myself.
Right.
As an outlet for my feelings, because I had a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
And found a school in Minneapolis in the back of a magazine. Remember magazines?
Yeah. So you went to like a trade school?
Yeah. I moved from Tacoma to Minneapolis to go to Minneapolis Community and Technical College.
Very cool. I feel like a lot of people, it's a disregarded kind of way to earn a trade.
Absolutely. I have been looked down upon in the big fancy arts community because I went to technical college. When people are like, oh, did you go to MCAD? Did you move to Minneapolis? And I'm like, fuck no. You think I got that kind of money? I think that there's this weird, don't get me wrong, education in every single different type of form and way that you get an education is extremely important.
Yep.
I don't think anyone should be poo-pooed for how they gained that education.
No way.
I realized that my parents were basically like, college is paid for. Don't worry, you go wherever you want. And then when it was my turn, youngest of four, they're like, oh, we don't have money, so you're not going to college. And I'm like, So I found a school and got a lot of jobs and packed all my shit up and took a train to Minneapolis and took a chance. And amazing. I went to MCTC because it was one of two schools in the nation that taught gemology and diamond grading. And the other school was like $65,000 a semester. And I was like, what can we do for like $2,000? What can we do for
right. Yeah. How much for a snip?
I'm like the Bruce Springsteen, John Cougar Mellencamp of jewelry making. Like, well, I'm not sure if my collar is blue or my neck is red, but
a little of both.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So I come from a family of talkers. I'm sure you could be very surprised at that. I
don't know what you're talking about. This is news. I've met your sister.
Make a couple friends when I leave the house. So
Definitely.
I figured, I bet if somebody gave me the technical skills to do this, that I could come up with the creative shit. And I could use my mouth to get me where I needed to go. So went to MCTC, working for corporate America, Borders, Books, and Music. Okay. I put on some fancy clothes, i.e. lots of cleavage and too much jewelry. And went downtown just talking to jewelry stores to see what kind of credentials I would need from a college to work at a jewelry store. And everyone was like,
what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? And I walked into Studio Vincent and there was some lady with leather pants on and she basically shoved an application down my throat.
Very cool. Like, this is for the studio.
Yeah, this was for Studio Vincent. And I was like, she's like, no, you should work here. And I was like, I'm perfectly happy working with my job for corporate. I'll take that application.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Was this the downstairs? Did you work downstairs first, like in the showroom? Or did you get a job working on the floor with Steve Vincent first?
Oh, I started at the bottom and worked my way up. So this was when he had a gallery space in Gavaday Commons, and it was like super, like glass walls and teeny tiny.
Yeah.
So I worked at the gallery and then worked my way into an apprenticeship. I worked as a salesperson, and I was I was the best salesperson he ever had, and he told me that.
Right on.
I can sell some stuff.
Yes, you can.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I told him that was my, like, I was like, I want to be a goldsmith and I want to do an apprenticeship. And I don't know if that's in the cards, but if you give me a chance, I won't do you wrong. I was so dedicated and I gave my 20s to that man.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't drink on Friday nights because Saturday was when couples would come in, and nobody wants to buy an $8,000 engagement ring to someone who smells like the Triple Rock or First Avenue. Nobody.
Nobody.
So, I mean, I feel like none of my friends would recognize me I had platinum blonde hair and I wore pantyhose and high heels and skirts and dresses and shit.
Yeah.
And Victoria was my secret. And
and if you don't know Betty now she's more cowgirl boots and booty shorts, really.
I mean, I could live my life in jeans and a t-shirt or short shorts and boots. That's right. I'm not trying to fake anyone anymore. I don't need to put on a dress for nobody.
Oh, you're not putting on airs? Is that Betty's not? So tell me a little bit about sales. Like, what makes you a good salesperson? Drop some truth on me as far as this goes.
I kind of hate the term salesperson because I feel like I imagine like middle-aged dude with a comb over and a pinky ring that's either going to sell you a bad car or give you a venereal disease.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of artists are really good at being an artist and some of them can't sell their work. I think that the secret to my success is I don't bullshit. If I don't like you, it's probably very aware on my face that I don't like you. I'm a really bad liar, so that might make me a good salesperson. But I also think that it might be easy to be around me, however you are, whoever you are. Yeah. Like, I'm not a discriminatory person to the furthest of my knowledge. So I think that maybe people are at ease, but also I'm excited about what I do. And I always have been. And I think working at Studio Vincent as a salesperson for so long, asking people for so much money for things, got me really comfortable and being like, kind of romancing the stone. Being like, when people are like, how much is this? I'm not going to be like, this is $8,000. I'm going to be like, oh, this is made of platinum with 1.5 carats of diamonds. You want to learn something cool? You should see how this fucking thing is made. You should see the hammer that you got to use to do this. Like, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I love to go on adventures, and sometimes I take people on adventures with jewelry. It's not just a piece of jewelry. Like, it's a little part of my story. And I think that excitement and that, like, hard-on for what you're doing and how you're doing it makes a really big difference to people instead of, like, you know, my shit doesn't look like anybody else's. It's unique. Maybe I'm a little unique. I don't know.
Oh, you think? Maybe a little bit? You know, I know artists that are really good at sales, like classic, almost used car sales. And I don't think they do as well as the people who are going after the honest connection. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I know that's what you do. And it's like, okay, let's tell some stories. Let's get down into it. Let's talk about who I am, who I'm trying to be. I always feel like I just have my worst show of the year is usually my first show of the year because I just haven't really, I've forgotten how to talk to people.
Yeah, you're a little squeaky. The wheels are a little squeaky. Yeah. It's like a big bottle of WD-40.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's a, big old bottle of Maker's Mark, but you gotta open yourself up the way you can. And it's just gonna, I don't know. I appreciate that about you because when I did first meet you, it was definitely more of a, shit, I know you. And it's like, you just lay it all out, and it's kind of like, okay. And there's very few people I was lucky enough to meet my wife that way. And it's like this recognition. And I always say that about her. I'm like, oh shit, I think my wheels are going to fit your cogs. It's just, and it's that kind of honesty that I appreciate about you laying it all out on the line.
I just put my cards out on the table. That's why I'm not a good poker player. Somebody recently was like, what are you not good at? I'm like, drinking and lying.
Those are great things not to be good at. You're good at laughing, good at connecting with people.
I look like I could hold a lot of booze, but I'm a fucking lightweight. Also, I don't need liquor to have a good time. I can have a good time.
No way.
sober as a jaybird. Usually I'm stoned though, but I'm, I mean, I'm really surprised no one's been like, oh, for a good time call. I've called you before.
Oh yeah, I've seen that number.
Yeah.
Recognize
that number looks familiar.
Hey, here's something that you brought up early on in the conversation that I wanted to circle back to. You said something about not feeling ready to apply to shows because you felt like the work you had was not current. Man, is that some horse shit? Just apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also feel so rusty. I mean, literally the last show I did was Baltimore 2020. I don't know. There's this weird looming, like, do I have to reinvent the wheel? Like, do I need a new display? Do I have to go buy a new tent? Do I need to make new tables? Probably not.
No way.
I don't know.
It's like Mark Maron. I was listening to one of his comedy bits about, he was talking about exercise and getting back in shape and whatever. And he's like, I need to lose like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, he always tricks himself into thinking he's got to buy the magic pants or the magic shoes that are actually going to make him do the shit that he has to do. It's like, and I know a lot of artists do that with a magic booth. You know, Matthew Navsker, he and I talk about booths and things. And I'm like, I always want to tell him, you don't need the magic booth. You don't need the new magic table. Just get out there and sell your shit. You'll be all right.
I mean, you've seen my setup. My setup's like, all right, well, if somebody leans on this table, it's not going to fall over. And if shit hits the fan and a tornado whips through, I can just like fall this into a backpack and I'm good. I don't want a fancy setup.
You definitely could, but your setup has a certain style to it, and you have a certain branding to your work that works for you, and it's all I can go grab your most expensive piece off of your table pretty much and just look at it.
Yeah.
But we're talking artists here, but you've got it, like you lay it all out on the table as far as yourself, you put all your shit out on the table as it is. It's like, I've picked up some of your work before and be like, oh my God, I'm just holding a $3,500 piece. I can't just.
But also, you just went up a weight class, and that's like 8 ounces of fucking silver in your hand. And like, exactly, you could break somebody's teeth. Not only is it jewelry, but it's a statement to fuck around and find out. You could, this is on a chain long enough. You could make somebody lose a tooth if they're fucking with you from 6 feet away.
You remember the piece I picked up. But it's all out there, and you're laying it all out there, and it's all part of your style too. So, and I appreciate that being pretty, and I know you work on it, but it's pretty well realized. It seems like from the shell, you emerged pretty much fully realized.
Thank you. I feel like jewelry is one of those things that I hear a lot standing behind that table of people being like, I don't like jewelry. And it's like, okay, please consider jewelry's art, and there's lots of art, and when there's so much jewelry, that means there's so much ugly shit.
Right.
That's been done a million times before. So, like, maybe you just haven't found the right jewelry yet. It's also this weird, like, accessibility thing where people are like, oh, expensive stuff, I don't want to touch it. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I lay it all out on the table, except for like I have 2 cases where like I would cry for maybe too long if one of those pieces got stolen, so they go in the case.
And you've had it happen too,
haven't we all?
I know that Kentucky story.
Fucking Chester, his name was Chester.
Tell us the story.
He took my jewels. It was one of those things when you sell higher end items, as you know, sometimes people have to come visit it a couple times in an art show, right? So then you're like, oh, you're back to like maybe buy something. He was scoping out the case. He talked to me. We had conversations. He told me how much he liked my jewelry, and he was scoping out my shit and waited till I went to the bathroom. My assistant was there and stole maybe like 4 pieces that amounted to about $5,000. And I came back from the bathroom, and my friend Jules was like, oh, your buddy Chester came back. And I'm like, oh, what was he looking at? And she's like,
oh, no.
And I'm like, the pieces that aren't here. And she's like, oh, my God, girl, I'm so sorry. I'm like, fuck. He hit 3 other artists, 3 other jewelry artists at that show. He picked like the biggest, heaviest silver pieces. Yeah. I told the show directors, and they're like, we're going to call the cops. I'm like, don't call the fucking cops. I don't want to call the cops. I don't want to call the cops. Like, they're like, but how? I'm like, cops don't need this to handle. I don't believe in the cops. I just want my shit back. I don't want anyone to go to jail. I don't want to ruin anyone's life because they made a poor decision to fuck with the wrong bitch.
Generous of you, because I sure as hell like to catch their leg outside the car door.
I mean, I would love to find them in person because little do they know I have a photogenic memory, and if I ever see them again, I'm not a violent person, but I am prepared, and words cut deeper and truer sometimes.
Yeah.
I did find out, I feel like I didn't tell anyone this, but a year after that happened, I went back to Louisville to do the same show, and I went to a gallery downtown New which is like a strip in Louisville. There's probably like 5 or 6 smaller galleries there. And this woman was like, oh, don't you just love Louisville? And everybody's just so nice and trusting. And I was like, actually, fuck no, I don't. Let me tell you. And she's like, oh, Chester. And I was like, Chester?
Did she know Chester?
What? She's like, older man. I was like, yeah, it looks like a short mama's boy version of Fred Armisen from SNL. And she's like,
yeah.
Oh my God, that motherfucker. And I was like, tell me what you know. He's known in Louisville. He really likes to steal really big, heavy silver pieces. And who knows if he's like reselling them or just hoarding them. He kept hitting the same like 4 galleries, and they kept calling the cops, and the cops didn't do anything because they didn't have proof. So they set up their own surveillance and caught him, and he went to jail.
Did they catch him? Mm-hmm. No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever find out what happened to your stuff?
No, because they didn't follow the rules and file a police report. I mean, it's just stuff, right? It's just stuff. Nobody got hurt.
But it's part of he made a connection.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it would feel different if he didn't treat me like a human being, if I didn't treat him like a potential client. Also, a human fucking being. Like, don't lie to me. Don't be a dirtbag. I don't know if there is a lesson because I really don't want to put my jewelry in a case. It's just like the same thing when people are like, oh, so you have a gun. I'm like, fuck no. I don't want to live in a world where I feel like I need a gun to do my job, to just be another human being who sometimes happens to have a 75-pound sack of jewelry that costs about $250,000. Like, my daddy taught me to walk like people shouldn't fuck with me. And also maybe get a really big knife and put it right where my largest asset is, which is my bottom.
I've seen your jewels too. You can, if you're wearing any of that shit, you can stand up for yourself.
I mean, part of me is like, oh, please try and steal this bag. You'll take 2 steps.
I wish a bitch would.
And with my 4.5 foot long legs, I'll just kick your dumb ass over and you can just turtle out. Just
turtle out.
I will never put my jewelry in a rolling bag because that makes it too easy.
I hear you. We all hide our shit, but we got to watch out for each other.
We all do different things with the baby. The baby comes with us.
The books. Yeah. Can I carry your books for you? Well, we watch out for each other, though. Walking pairs.
We do. Also, I will put this out there. Hey, artist friends, if you are a non-jewelry artist and you have some friends that make jewelry, check in on them. See if they want an escort to their car. See if you can spare an extra 35 minutes in your day to wait till they pack up and make sure that they get to their car. I am a big girl and I can fucking take care of myself, but that does not mean I don't appreciate the company or someone looking out for me.
Absolutely. And also, I totally know what you mean.
I mean,
also,
of course you know what I mean, because you have Susan. And definitely. Oh God, I would rip someone's head off with my teeth if they ever fucked with Susie, because she's not as big and scary as me.
She could be scary when she wants to, but I know what you mean.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But no, that's a huge point. People talk about jewelers rolling up in their cars and they can set the show up in, a few hours without the big display, and you can roll, she's rolled in a little Volvo hatchback. People are like, oh my God, here comes a jeweler. But at the same time, you're sticking around an hour after the fact and
I'm getting there 2 hours early, and I have urinary tract infections constantly because I can't just leave my fucking booth unattended.
Yeah. take another break and then go talk to your jeweler neighbors and let them go to the bathroom if you're selling 2D that doesn't walk away. Or check in. You're next to a jeweler and you see they're by themselves. Be like, hey, I am here with my partner and one of us can check you out, watch you for a while or whatever. You need to take a break. Just let us know. So feel free to use the restroom or get your period because we've got your back, right?
Jesus. Especially your women jeweler friends.
Yeah.
Next time you feel like being like, oh, you jewelers, you just roll in here and use it. Knock that shit off.
Right.
We are all in the same boat. We all want everyone to have a really good show. Like, I have been sized up by so many people like, oh, you're a fucking jeweler. It's like, listen,
No
asshole.
way.
How would you like to take your entire tent and your entire livelihood and pack it up and put it in a backpack and carry it around every day?
Right.
And maybe not go party with your friends because you got $250,000 sitting in your hotel room. Like,
right. I have never personally forgotten my entire body of work in a backpack in a bar, but I know it's possible for you guys.
Oh, it's not possible for me, but it's probably a reason why I don't drink so much anymore either.
Yeah.
Never come close, but it's like, let's all just look out for each other. When you got precious little expensive things that are sometimes heavy, I don't know. Just look out for each other. Quit giving the jewelers a hard fucking time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't give other artists a hard time for their medium. I just give them a hard time for being homophobic. Old crab apples. Like,
yeah.
Also, anybody out there at a show and I'm at a show and your neighbor's giving you shit, call me. I will set them straight. I'm not scared of anyone. I've done it before. Just be nice to each other.
That's all that matters.
And if not, call me. And I'll make them be nice.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know, my favorite movie is Roadhouse. So be nice.
Be nice.
Until it's time to not be nice.
I love you, Betty.
I love you too.
Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you more than you know.
I miss y'all. Give Susie a big squeeze for me, okay?
I'm going to go do it right now. I love you, Betty. Thanks again.
Love you too, Will. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
That's a different podcast ending.
Awesome talk with Betty, Will. I really enjoyed what you guys had to say.
Yeah, no apologies from Betty. She is who she is, and you get what you get.
I like the part of her talk where she's talking about people who have lived their lives with privileges that they don't even realize that they have. You can kind of feel this sense lately with where we are. This kind of like this impatience. Everyone's so like impatient and angry. And there was a story that I wanted to share that happened this weekend at the Grove. And it involved some of our good friends of the pod, Amy Carstensen and Daphne Covington. They're packing up the show. At the end of the show, they're getting all their stuff into the van. And we look down and they're about 10, 12 booths down from us. And there is this huge altercation, this shouting match. And I see these two ladies just like hurrying and scurrying in and out of their van, just trying to like avoid this deal. Well, what happened is one of the food vendors had their food truck hooked up to their truck, and they pull right up to where Daphne and Amy are, and they want to exit where their van is at the curb. And they had just like
through them? They want to just go
basically drive through them, and they wanted them to move their van, and they wanted them to move now. And neither one of them want any kind of confrontation. And they were like, we just have one or two more things to throw in the van and we'll be out of the way. But this wasn't fast enough for this privileged asshole. So it just so happened right at that timing, a security guard who wasn't going to take any bullshit from anyone was there. And he said, you guys finish packing up. I've got this. And this shouting match between these two guys was intense and it was vehement. And I'm so glad that they got out of there without any fists being thrown. But nowadays, you don't know if a gun's going to get pulled, if someone's, right. I mean, if it's going to go to blows. But ultimately, the idea was that this guy wanted out and he wanted them to move because he wanted out and it was his time. So,
I mean, I'm glad that person stepped in so that Amy and Daft didn't have to stop what they were doing.
Right.
But I ain't fucking with Amy and Daft. You want to stay on their good side. There's nobody I love more than those guys, but it's like, man, they can stick up for themselves. That guy was in trouble if he kept pushing it.
Yeah, but I think he was really trying to throw his privilege around and just boss them the heck around. And it's just not right. It's just not right at all. So
nope.
I messaged them the next day because I was wondering if we needed to go over there as, an artist community to help them out. But when I saw that the security guard was the one who was doing the yelling, I thought, okay, maybe they're not even involved. Maybe Daft and Amy aren't even involved in this deal. So I out of curiosity, I texted her the next day and I said, was that aimed at you? And she told me the whole entire story. And I said, well, I'm glad that you weren't like in the conflict, that you were just conflict adjacent for that whole situation. She said conflict adjacent, yes.
Haven't we all been there? I mean, there's always some kind of breakdown. I remember doing a show in South Carolina, Atalaya. I was doing that show, and it's a tough breakdown. You have to do a lot of dollying to get out of this cool little castle that's there. There was literally a hurricane coming in, and we were getting the outer rings of this hurricane. And my neighbor, he and I had a great weekend. He's like, but pulled right in front of the back of my van. Couldn't even open the back of my van. I'm like, Brian, what's going on? He's like, well, I've got to get my workout. It's like, well, okay. People, I don't know. It all becomes me sometimes.
We need to step back and be like, do a little reality check here. When we start finding our impatience and our what about me meter going through the roof, we need to take a deep breath and say, okay, it's all about all of us. We all need to make this work together.
Right.
That's a little kumbaya.
Is that how you're going to bring us out there? Take this to the... All right, it's the singing portion of the podcast. That means it's over, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another Independent Artist Podcast. I'll see you next time. Who do we have on the docket, Douglas?
Next episode, we have another Minneapolis native, Kimber Feibiger, the bronze Humpty Dumpty lady. I went to her gallery and studio and got immersed in Kimber's world, and it was a lot of fun. So...
That's awesome. I've admired Kimber's work for many years, and it'll be interesting to hear the talk I've heard it, but it'll be interesting for everybody else to hear it next time. We'll see you folks in a couple weeks. Be safe out there on the road. Be good to each other. Don't block each other's vans. And
don't be an asshole.
There we go.
All right. Bye, guys.
This podcast is brought to you by the National Association of Independent Artists. The website is naiaartists.org.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. That's zapplication.org. And while you're at it, check out Will's website at willarmstrongart.com and my website at sigwithglass.com.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when we release new episodes.